I never thought a Halloween party would change my life, but there I was, standing in the corner of our firm's lavish reception area, feeling like a fraud in my Wonder Woman costume. At 35, I should have outgrown this nonsense, but the partners insisted on team bonding. Bullshit. I tugged at the too-tight bodice, cursing under my breath. Trouble with the lasso of truth? A voice teased behind me. I spun around, nearly spilling my drink, and found myself face to face with myself? No, another Wonder Woman. But damn if she didn't wear it better. Looks like great minds think alike, I managed, taking in her confident stance and mischievous green eyes. I'm Sienna. Valerie, she replied, extending a hand. Her grip was firm, sending an unexpected tingle up my arm. Let me guess, you're hiding from the IT nerds dressed as the Justice League? I laughed, surprised at how easily she'd pegged me. Guilty as charged. And you? Oh, I'm crashing, Valerie winked. My friend works here and said there'd be free booze. Couldn't resist the chance to show off my cosplay skills. For the next hour, we huddled in our little corner, swapping stories and snarky comments about our coworkers. Valerie, I learned, ran a tech startup and had a wicked sense of humor. I found myself laughing more than I had in months, maybe years. So Sienna, Valerie said, leaning in conspiratorially. What's a smart, gorgeous lawyer like you doing solo at a party like this? I felt a flush creep up my neck, and not just from the champagne. Oh, married to the job and all that. Plus, I'm fresh off a divorce. Men are complicated. Valerie's eyebrow quirked. Men, huh? Ever thought about simplifying things? Before I could process the implication, a drunk Aquaman stumbled between us, breaking the moment. Valerie steadied him with a laugh, then turned back to me. Well, Sienna, it's been a pleasure, but I should probably make my escape before security realizes I'm a party crasher. She pulled out a business card and pressed it into my hand. If you ever want to talk law, tech, or simpler options, she winked, give me a call. I watched her weave through the crowd, my heart pounding in a way I couldn't explain. I glanced down at the card, Valerie Chen, CEO, Neuralink Solutions. The rest of the party passed in a blur. I made the obligatory rounds, smiled at the right jokes, but my mind kept drifting back to those green eyes and that enigmatic smile. By the time I got home, kicking off my ridiculous boots, I was convinced it was just the alcohol and the unusual night. But as I lay in bed, Valerie's card on my nightstand, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. I'd spent 2 years since my divorce focused solely on work, building walls around my heart. Now, with just a few words and a lingering touch, those walls felt shaky. I told myself it was nothing. A fleeting connection at a silly party. I was straight, for God's sake, happily divorced and married to my career. And yet, I fell asleep with Valerie's laugh echoing in my dreams, wondering what exactly she'd meant by simpler options. Little did I know, that business card would be my first step into a world I never knew I was missing. 2 weeks after the Halloween party, I was buried in paperwork when Maria, my paralegal, poked her head in. Sienna, there's a potential new client here to see you. Says it's urgent. I sighed, rubbing my temples. Fine, send them in. The door swung open, and my heart skipped a beat. Valerie Chen strode in, trading her Wonder Woman costume for a sharp blazer and slacks. Her confident smirk hadn't changed a bit. Well, she said, settling into the chair across from me. Fancy meeting you here, counselor. I straightened my blouse, suddenly self-conscious. Valerie, this is unexpected. Good unexpected, I hope? She leaned forward, those green eyes sparkling with mischief. I need a lawyer, and I figured who better than the woman who saved me from a night of awkward small talk. We dove into business, Valerie explaining the intricacies of her startup's latest neural interface technology. I found myself fascinated, not just by the groundbreaking science, but by the passion in her voice. As the meeting stretched into evening, our conversation drifted from work to more personal territory. So, Valerie said, twirling a pen between her fingers, have you given any thought to those simpler options we discussed? I felt my cheeks flush. I may have, but it's complicated. Life's always complicated, Sienna, she replied softly. Sometimes we need to embrace the chaos. Over the next few weeks, our late-night strategy sessions became a regular occurrence. I told myself it was just thorough client care, but deep down I knew there was more to it. The way my skin tingled when we reached for the same document, the lingering glances over takeout containers. It was a dance of tension and possibility. One night, as we pored over contracts, our hands brushed. Instead of pulling away, Valerie's fingers intertwined with mine. The world seemed to stop. "Sienna," she whispered, her face inches from mine. "I think we both know this isn't just about legal counsel anymore." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All I knew was the warmth of her hand and the intensity in her eyes. "Valerie, The shrill ring of my office phone shattered the moment. I jerked back, fumbling for the receiver. It was the managing partner, summoning me to an emergency meeting. "I have to go," I said, my voice shaky. "I'm sorry, Valerie nodded, understanding but disappointed. "We'll continue this discussion another time." As I hurried to the conference room, my mind raced. What the hell was I doing? I was straight. I had a respectable career, a life I'd carefully rebuilt after my divorce. And yet, in those quiet moments with Valerie, everything I thought I knew about myself seemed to unravel. The emergency meeting turned out to be worse than I could have imagined. Economic downturn, client losses, necessary cuts. By the time I returned to my office, Valerie was gone, leaving only a hastily scribbled note. "Call me when you're ready to talk about everything." I collapsed into my chair, emotionally and physically drained. In the span of an hour, my carefully constructed world had been turned upside down. The job I'd sacrificed everything for was suddenly on shaky ground, and the one person I wanted to talk to about it was the same person making me question everything I thought I knew about myself. As I stared at Valerie's note, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Heard about the firm's troubles. Seems we're in the same boat. My investors pulled out. Drinks? We could both use one." I hesitated, my finger hovering over the reply button. This was a crossroads, I realized. I could ignore the text, bury myself in work, and pretend the past few weeks never happened. Or I could take a leap into the unknown. With a deep breath, I typed, "Name the place. I'll be there." As I grabbed my coat, I caught a glimpse of myself in the office window. For the first time in years, despite the chaos swirling around me, I saw a spark of excitement in my eyes. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain: life was about to get a whole lot more interesting. The bar was dimly lit, a smoky haze hanging in the air. I spotted Valerie in a corner booth, 2 glasses of whiskey already waiting. As I slid in across from her, she raised an eyebrow. "Rough day?" she asked, pushing a glass towards me. I downed half of it in one go, wincing at the burn. "You could say that. Firms cutting staff left and right. I might be out of a job by the end of the week." Valerie nodded sympathetically. "Join the club. My main investor got cold feet. Pulled out this morning." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our shared misfortune settling between us. Then, unexpectedly, I started to laugh. Valerie looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Sorry," I gasped, wiping tears from my eyes. "It's just, God, what a mess, right? A month ago, I had it all figured out. Now." I gestured vaguely at the air around us. Valerie's lips quirked into a smile. "Now you're drinking cheap whiskey with a woman who's making you question your sexuality?" I choked on my drink. That's not I mean." "Relax, Sienna," she chuckled, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "I'm just teasing, mostly." The touch sent a jolt through me, and suddenly I couldn't ignore it anymore. The attraction, the confusion, the exhilarating terror of it all. "Valerie," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "what are we doing here?" She met my gaze, her eyes serious now. "I think you know exactly what we're doing. The question is, are you ready to admit it?" I took a deep breath, searching for the right words. I'm not. Gay? Valerie finished for me. Neither was I until I was. Sexuality isn't always a fixed point, Sienna. Sometimes it's a journey. We talked for hours, emptying our glasses and our hearts. I told her about my divorce, the years I'd spent burying myself in work to avoid facing my own loneliness. She shared stories of her own coming out, the challenges and the profound sense of finally being true to herself. As the bar emptied around us, Valerie leaned in close. "Look, I'm not going to pressure you, but I like you, Sienna, a lot. And I think you feel something too. Whatever happens next, it's your call." My heart raced as I stared into those captivating green eyes. Everything in me screamed to run, to retreat to the safety of what I knew. But a smaller voice, one I'd been ignoring for far too long, whispered, "Take the leap." Before I could overthink it, I closed the distance between us, pressing my lips to hers. The kiss was soft, tentative at first, then deepening as years of repressed desire came flooding out. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, I saw my own wonder and confusion mirrored in Valerie's face. "Wow," she murmured, touching her lips. "That was—" "Yeah," I agreed, unable to stop smiling. "It really was." The spell was broken by my phone buzzing insistently, a string of panicked texts from Maria about the firm's latest crisis. Reality came crashing back in. "Shit," I muttered, scrolling through the messages. "I have to go. This is complicated?" Valerie finished, a hint of resignation in her voice. I nodded, torn between the pull of responsibility and the desire to stay in this moment forever. "I'm sorry, I need some time to process all of this." Valerie squeezed my hand one last time as I stood to leave. "Take all the time you need, but Sienna, don't let fear make the decision for you." The next few days passed in a blur of meetings, phone calls, and sleepless nights. The firm was hemorrhaging clients, and despite our best efforts, it was clear the writing was on the wall. By Friday afternoon, half the staff had been let go, including Maria. I sat in my office, staring at the walls I'd called home for the past decade, waiting for the axe to fall. When my phone buzzed, I expected another corporate death knell. Instead, it was Valerie. "Heard about the firm. How are you holding up?" Her simple message broke something loose inside me. Before I knew it, I was pouring out everything, my fears, my frustrations, the crippling uncertainty of what came next. Valerie listened patiently, offering words of encouragement and understanding. As our call wound down, she hesitated, then said, "Look, I know this is crazy timing, but I have an idea. A business proposal, actually. Why don't you come over tomorrow and we can talk about it?" I found myself agreeing before I could think too hard about it. As I hung up, a strange sense of calm washed over me. My career, my identity, everything I thought I knew about myself was in flux. But for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of excitement about the unknown. That night, as I packed up my office, I came across an old photo of myself from law school. The bright-eyed, ambitious girl staring back at me seemed like a stranger. I tucked the picture into my bag, a reminder of who I'd been and a question mark for who I might become. Tomorrow, I decided, was the first day of my new life, whatever that might look like. I stood outside Valerie's loft, my hand hovering over the doorbell. Part of me wanted to run, to retreat to the safe, predictable life I'd always known. But I'd spent the last decade playing it safe, and where had that gotten me? Unemployed and alone. Taking a deep breath, I pressed the button. Valerie answered, dressed in jeans and a soft sweater, looking far more relaxed than I felt. "Sienna," she smiled, pulling me into a hug. "Come in." Her apartment was a mix of sleek tech and cozy touches. Whiteboards covered in complex diagrams stood next to overstuffed bookshelves. It felt lived in, alive in a way my own sterile condo never had. "So," I said, settling onto her couch, "you mentioned a business proposal?" Valerie's eyes lit up. "Right. Okay, hear me out. You're a brilliant corporate lawyer. I'm a tech innovator with contacts throughout the industry. What if we combined our skills?" She outlined her vision, a consulting firm specializing in the legal and ethical implications of emerging technologies. With my legal expertise and her tech savvy, we could bridge the gap between Silicon Valley's rapid innovations and the slow-moving world of regulation. "It's risky," she admitted. "We'd be starting from scratch, but I think we could really make a difference." I mulled it over, my mind racing. It was ambitious, terrifying, and oddly exhilarating. "You really think we could pull this off?" Valerie grinned. "Honey, together? We could take over the world." The casual endearment sent a flutter through my stomach. I cleared my throat, trying to focus. "It's not just the business I'm worried about, Valerie. This, us. It's also new. What if we crash and burn?" She took my hand, her touch sending sparks up my arm. "Life's full of what-ifs, Sienna. Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith." I stared at our intertwined fingers, marveling at how natural it felt. "Okay," I whispered. "Let's do it." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. We threw ourselves into building our new venture, working long hours fueled by coffee and takeout. I handled the legal framework while Valerie reached out to her network. Slowly but surely, our crazy idea started taking shape. But it wasn't all business. In stolen moments between meetings and late-night planning sessions, Valerie and I explored this new facet of our relationship. Soft touches as we passed each other in the kitchen, lingering glances over laptop screens, the delicious tension of attraction mixed with the thrill of new love. One night, exhausted but elated after landing our first client, we collapsed onto Valerie's couch in a fit of giggles. "We did it," I breathed, hardly believing it myself. "We actually did it." Valerie turned to me, her eyes shining. Was there ever any doubt? In that moment, overcome with joy and adrenaline, I couldn't hold back anymore. I leaned in, capturing her lips in a kiss that made our first one seem chaste by comparison. Valerie responded eagerly, pulling me closer as years of pent-up desire came pouring out. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, Valerie cupped my face in her hands. "Wow," she murmured. "That was..." "Yeah," I agreed, unable to stop smiling. "It really was." We stayed up talking until dawn, sharing hopes and fears, dreams and insecurities. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen and accepted, not for who I pretended to be, but for who I really was. As the sun peeked through the windows, Valerie yawned and stretched. "We should probably get some sleep. Big day ahead." I nodded, suddenly shy. "I should head home, I guess." Valerie caught my hand. "Or, you could stay." The implications hung in the air between us. This was it, the point of no return. I thought of my old life, the careful walls I'd built around my heart. Then I looked at Valerie, this brilliant, beautiful woman who'd turned my world upside down in the best possible way. "I'd like that," I said softly. What followed was a night of tender exploration and passionate discovery. It was awkward and fumbling at times, but also sweet and thrilling in ways I'd never experienced before. As we lay tangled together afterwards, I felt a sense of rightness, of coming home to a place I never knew existed. The next morning, as we prepared for our first official day of business, reality started to creep back in. What would people say? How would this affect our professional lives? As if reading my mind, Valerie squeezed my hand. "Hey," she said gently. "We've got this, together." I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. She was right. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them as a team. As we left the apartment, I caught sight of our reflection in the hallway mirror. Two women, hand in hand, stepping into the unknown with hope and determination. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but standing there with Valerie, I knew it was the life I was meant to live. Ready to change the world. Valerie grinned, keys jingling in her hand. I leaned in, stealing one more quick kiss. "With you? Always." And with that, we stepped out into the bright Greensboro morning, ready to tackle whatever came our way, in business and in love. 6 months into our venture, and life was a beautiful chaos. Our firm, Kronos Tech Law, was gaining traction in Greensboro's burgeoning tech scene. Valerie and I were pulling 14-hour days, fueled by caffeine and the thrill of building something from scratch. But as exhilarating as our professional success was, it paled in comparison to the joy I found in our personal relationship. Every morning, I'd wake up next to Valerie, marveling at how natural it felt. How had I gone my whole life without knowing this kind of connection was possible? But as our bubble of new love started to expand, reality began creeping in around the edges. It started with whispers at networking events, sidelong glances when Valerie and I stood a little too close. Then came the pointed questions from old colleagues. "So, Sienna, you and your business partner seem close. How's that working out?" I'd laugh it off, deflect, change the subject. But each time, the knot in my stomach grew tighter. I wasn't ashamed of Valerie, far from it. But the thought of confronting my conservative family, of potentially losing clients who might not approve, it terrified me. Valerie, ever perceptive, noticed my unease. One night, as we pored over contracts in our home office, she broached the subject. "Sienna," she said softly, setting down her pen. "We need to talk about this." I feigned ignorance. "About the Henderson clause? I thought we agreed." "Not the damn clause," Valerie interrupted, her green eyes intense. "About us. About how you tense up every time someone asks about our relationship. About how you introduced me as your colleague to that potential investor last week." I felt my cheeks burn with shame. Val, I'm sorry, it's complicated. Life's always complicated, remember? She echoed my words from months ago. But hiding who we are? That's not the answer. We talked late into the night. I poured out my fears of rejection, of professional backlash, of disappointing the family I'd always strived to please. Valerie listened, offering comfort and understanding, but also gentle challenge. I get it, babe, she said, squeezing my hand. Coming out is scary as hell, but living a lie, that's scarier. The next morning, steeling my nerves, I called my brother Thomas. We'd drifted apart since my divorce, his disapproval of my lifestyle choices creating a chasm between us. But if I was going to do this, I had to start with family. Tommy? It's Sienna. I need to talk to you about something important. The conversation that followed was one of the hardest of my life. Thomas's initial shock gave way to anger, then a cold silence that hurt worse than any shouting. I don't understand, he finally said, his voice tight. This isn't you, Sienna. It's that woman, isn't it? She's confused you. I took a deep breath, Valerie's words echoing in my mind. No, Tommy, this is me, the real me, for the first time in my life. He hung up without another word. I collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming down my face. Valerie held me close, murmuring words of comfort. It'll be okay, love. Give him time. The next few weeks were a roller coaster. Word spread quickly in our small legal community. Some colleagues were supportive, others awkwardly distant. We lost 2 clients who cited differences in values. But for every setback, there seemed to be an unexpected victory. Maria, my former paralegal, reached out with words of encouragement. About damn time, boss, she texted. I always knew there was more to you than briefs and billable hours. Jennifer Wu, a cutthroat attorney I'd faced off against in court, surprised me by recommending us to a major tech firm. They need lawyers who understand both the legal and social implications of their work, she explained. Who better than you two? Slowly but surely we found our footing. Our business continued to grow, attracting clients who valued our unique perspective. And with each passing day, I felt more comfortable in my own skin. One crisp fall evening, Valerie and I decided to attend a charity gala for Greensboro's LGBTQ Youth Center. As we stood at the entrance, I felt a familiar flicker of anxiety. Valerie squeezed my hand. We don't have to do this if you're not ready. I looked at her, this brilliant, beautiful woman who'd helped me discover a part of myself I never knew existed. Then I thought of all the young people inside, struggling with the same fears and doubts I'd battled. No, I said, straightening my shoulders. I'm ready. We walked in hand, heads held high. The room fell silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. Apparently, our coming out was old news to most of Greensboro's queer community. As we mingled, sharing our story with donors and youth alike, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. This was who I was meant to be. Who we were meant to be. Later that night, as Valerie and I slow danced under the twinkling lights, she leaned in close. Proud of you, counselor, she whispered. I pulled her closer, not caring who saw. Proud of us, I corrected. We had a long way to go. My family was still a work in progress, and navigating the business world as an out couple would bring its own challenges. But for the first time in my life, I felt truly unequivocally free. As the music swelled around us, I made a silent promise, to myself, to Valerie, to all those still living in fear. We would face whatever came next, together. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Just as Valerie and I were settling into our new normal, juggling our growing business and our blossoming relationship, the past came knocking, quite literally. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon. We were huddled in our home office, brainstorming strategies for a tricky patent case, when the doorbell rang. Valerie went to answer it, leaving me buried in legal briefs. Moments later, I heard raised voices. Frowning, I made my way to the entryway, only to stop dead in my tracks. There, dripping wet and looking like he'd aged a decade and 2 years, stood my ex-husband, David. Sienna, he said, his voice a mixture of relief and something else I couldn't quite place. I need your help. The next hour was surreal. David, it turned out, had gotten himself into some serious legal trouble. A failed business venture, some questionable investments, and now he was facing potential fraud charges. He'd come to me, to us, as a last resort. Valerie was tense, her jaw clenched as David spilled his story. I could see the questions in her eyes. Why here? Why now? As David finished, an uncomfortable silence fell over the room. I cleared my throat. David, I'm not sure I'm the right person to help you with this. He leaned forward, desperation etched on his face. Please, Sienna, you're the best lawyer I know. I don't have anyone else to turn to. I felt Valerie's hand on my arm, a gentle squeeze. Support, understanding, but also a warning. This was dangerous territory. I need to discuss this with my partner, I said finally. David's eyes flickered between Valerie and me, realization dawning. Oh, he said softly. I see. After David left, promising to call tomorrow, Valerie and I had our first real fight. She thought taking his case was a terrible idea, a complication we didn't need. I argued that I couldn't turn my back on someone in need, even if our history was complicated. He's using you, Sienna, Valerie said, frustration evident in her voice. Can't you see that? Maybe, I admitted. But what if he's not? What if he genuinely needs help? We went to bed that night with the issue unresolved, a palpable tension between us. The next morning over coffee, Valerie sighed. Okay, look, if you really want to do this, I'll support you. But we do it together, as a team. And at the first sign of trouble, we're out. Deal? I felt a rush of love for this woman who challenged me, supported me, and wasn't afraid to call me out on my bullshit. Deal, I said, sealing it with a kiss. What followed was a whirlwind of legal maneuvering, late nights, and increasingly complex ethical dilemmas. The deeper we dug into David's case, the murkier the waters became. It was clear he'd made some monumentally stupid decisions, but whether they crossed the line into criminal territory was frustratingly ambiguous. Throughout it all, I found myself grappling with unexpected emotions. Seeing David again brought back memories, some good, many bad, of our life together. I'd thought those wounds had healed, but working closely with him reopened old scars. One night, after a particularly grueling strategy session, David and I found ourselves alone in the office. Valerie had stepped out to grab dinner, leaving an awkward silence in her wake. You seem happy, David said suddenly, gesturing vaguely around the room. With her, I mean. I nodded, a small smile tugging at my lips. I am. Happier than I ever thought possible. He was quiet for a moment, then, I'm sorry, Sienna, for a lot of things. I don't think I ever really knew you, did I? The raw honesty in his voice caught me off guard. I'm not sure I knew myself back then, I admitted. We talked for hours, really talked, in a way we never had during our marriage. About our failures, our regrets, the people we'd become. It was cathartic, bringing a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. When Valerie returned, takeout bags in hand, she paused in the doorway, taking in the scene. For a moment, I saw a flicker of something. Hurt? Fear in her eyes. But then David stood, thanking us both for our help, and the moment passed. Later that night, as Valerie and I lay in bed, I turned to her. I need you to know something, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. What I feel for you. It's nothing like what I had with David. This us, it's so much more. Valerie's eyes glistened in the darkness. I know, she said softly. Sometimes I worry I'm not enough, that you'll realize you made a mistake. I pulled her close, my heart aching at the vulnerability in her voice. You're everything, Val, everything I never knew I needed. As we drifted off to sleep, I realized that facing my past had only strengthened my commitment to our future. Whatever challenges lay ahead, David's case, my family's lingering disapproval, the constant balancing act of love and work, I knew we'd face them together. The rain outside had finally stopped, and in the quiet of our bedroom, I made a silent vow. To cherish this woman beside me, to nurture the life we were building, and to never take for granted the beautiful, messy, complicated love we'd found. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, in Valerie's arms, I was exactly where I was meant to be. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting golden stripes across Valerie's sleeping form. I propped myself up on one elbow, drinking in the sight of her. Even after all these months, I still marveled at how drastically my life had changed. As if sensing my gaze, Valerie's eyes fluttered open. Morning, beautiful, she murmured, pulling me down for a soft kiss. We lingered in bed, trading lazy caresses and whispered endearments. It was a rare moment of peace in what had become a whirlwind of activity, David's case was heating up, with the trial date looming. Our firm was expanding, taking on more high-profile clients. And then there was the constant dance of navigating our relationship in the public eye. "We should get up," I sighed, though I made no move to leave the warmth of Valerie's embrace. She grinned, her fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. "Or we could stay right here, play hooky. I'll even let you be the big spoon." I laughed, tempted by the offer. But reality, as always, came knocking. My phone buzzed insistently on the nightstand, Maria, with updates on David's case. As we reluctantly got ready for the day, I couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Something was brewing, a storm on the horizon I couldn't quite see. That feeling proved prophetic when we arrived at the office to find a small crowd of reporters camped outside. Maria met us at the door, her expression grim. "It's all over the morning news," she said, ushering us inside. "Someone leaked details of David's case to the press. They're calling it the tech scandal of the decade." My stomach dropped as I scanned the headlines. Our careful legal maneuvering, the delicate negotiations we'd been working on for months, all of it was now splashed across every major news outlet in Greensboro. "Shit," Valerie muttered, scrolling through her phone. "This is bad, Sienna. Really bad." The next few hours were a blur of damage control. Fielding calls from panicked clients, trying to reassure our team, all while dodging increasingly aggressive questions from the press. By mid-afternoon, I felt like I was drowning. "We need to make a statement," Valerie said, pacing our office. "Get ahead of this before it spirals even further." I nodded, too exhausted to argue. We crafted a carefully worded press release, emphasizing our commitment to ethical practices and our confidence in our clients' innocence. But as I watched Valerie deliver it to the cameras outside, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. That night, as we collapsed onto the couch, the weight of the day finally hit me. I buried my face in my hands, fighting back tears of frustration. "Hey," Valerie said softly, pulling me close. "We'll get through this. We always do." I looked up at her, struck by the unwavering belief in her eyes. "How can you be so sure?" She smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "Because we're in this together, and there's nothing we can't handle as a team." Her words, so simple yet so powerful, broke something loose inside me. Suddenly, I was laughing and crying at the same time, overwhelmed by the absurdity of it all. "God, Val," I gasped between hiccuping laughs. "How did we end up here? A year ago, I was a stuffy corporate lawyer who'd never even kissed a woman. Now I'm embroiled in a tech scandal, living with the most amazing partner I could imagine, and I haven't worn pantyhose in months." Valerie joined in my laughter, the tension of the day finally breaking. "Life's funny that way, isn't it? You never know where it's going to take you." As our giggles subsided, replaced by a comfortable silence, I felt a surge of determination. We'd weathered storms before, my coming out, the early struggles of our business, the complications with David. We'd face this one head-on too. "You know what?" I said, sitting up straighter. "Screw the press release. Let's do a full interview. Tell our story, our way." Valerie raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? That's a big step." I nodded, feeling more certain with each passing second. "I'm done hiding, Val. I'm proud of who I am, of what we've built together. It's time the world saw that." The smile that broke across Valerie's face was radiant. "God, I love you," she said, pulling me in for a passionate kiss. We spent the rest of the night planning our media strategy, fueled by takeout and the giddy energy of taking control of our narrative. By the time we finally crawled into bed, exhausted but exhilarated, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in weeks. As I drifted off to sleep, Valerie's arms wrapped securely around me, I realized something profound. The old Sienna would have crumbled under the pressure of today, but this new version of myself, the one Valerie had helped me discover, was stronger than I ever imagined. The next morning dawned bright and clear, a perfect Greensboro spring day. As we dressed for our interview, I caught Valerie's eye in the mirror. "Ready to face the wolves?" she asked, adjusting my collar with a tender touch. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. "With you by my side?" "Always." Hand in hand, we stepped out into the sunlight, ready to tell our truth to the world. Whatever came next, we'd face it together, as partners, as lovers, as the team we were always meant to be. 1 year to the day after that fateful Halloween party, I found myself standing in front of a mirror, adjusting a Wonder Woman costume that felt both familiar and utterly foreign. The woman staring back at me was a far cry from the uptight lawyer who'd reluctantly attended a work function 12 months ago. "You ready, babe?" Valerie's voice called from the other room. "We're gonna be late." I grinned, giving myself one last once-over. "Coming?" We decided to throw a Halloween bash of our own this year, a celebration of how far we'd come and a cheeky nod to where it all began. Our loft was decked out in orange and black, the scent of pumpkin spice mingling with the excited chatter of guests. As I made my way through the crowd, I couldn't help but marvel at the transformation. Colleagues who'd once given us sidelong glances now clinked glasses with us, genuinely happy for our success. Maria, resplendent in a Catwoman outfit, was deep in conversation with Jennifer Wu, who'd become one of our staunchest allies in the legal community. Even my brother Thomas was here, awkward in a Superman costume but making an effort. Our reconciliation had been slow and sometimes painful, but his presence tonight spoke volumes. I found Valerie by the punch bowl, her own Wonder Woman costume drawing admiring glances. She beamed as I approached, pulling me in for a quick kiss. "Look at us," she murmured. "Who'd have thought, huh?" I squeezed her hand, a rush of emotion threatening to overwhelm me. "I love you," I said simply. The party was in full swing when there was a commotion at the door. David walked in, looking sheepish in a hastily assembled Batman costume. A hush fell over the room. His case had been resolved months ago, not a full acquittal, but far better than the prison time he'd been facing. Still, his presence here was unexpected, to say the least. I made my way over, Valerie close behind. "David," I said, surprised, "I didn't think you'd make it." He shrugged, a wry smile on his face. Couldn't miss the chance to see Gotham's finest power couple in action, could I? The tension broken, the party resumed its jovial atmosphere. As I watched David awkwardly mingle, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't realized I was missing. Later, as the night wound down and the last guests trickled out, Valerie and I found ourselves on the balcony, overlooking the twinkling lights of Greensboro. The cool October air was crisp with possibility. "Hell of a year, huh?" Valerie said, wrapping her arms around me from behind. I leaned into her embrace, savoring the warmth of her body against mine. That's an understatement. We stood in comfortable silence, reflecting on the whirlwind of the past 12 months. The media frenzy following our interview had been intense but ultimately positive. Our honesty and vulnerability had resonated with people, bringing an influx of new clients and opportunities. Kronos Tech Law was now the go-to firm for ethical tech solutions in the Southeast. We'd expanded, hiring a diverse team of young lawyers and techies who shared our vision. The work was challenging, exciting, and deeply fulfilling. But more than our professional success, it was our personal growth that amazed me. The woman I'd been a year ago would hardly recognize the Sienna of today, confident, open, and deeply in love. "I have something for you," Valerie said suddenly, breaking the silence. She reached into a hidden pocket of her costume and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath caught in my throat as she dropped to one knee, the box opened to reveal a stunning diamond ring. "Sienna Matthews," Valerie said, her voice thick with emotion, "this past year has been the greatest adventure of my life. Will you marry me?" Tears blurred my vision as I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Valerie slipped the ring onto my finger, then stood to pull me into a passionate kiss. As we broke apart, breathless and giddy, a chorus of cheers erupted behind us. Our friends had gathered in the doorway, glasses raised in celebration. "To Sienna and Valerie," Maria called out, her voice choked with happy tears. "To love," Jennifer added. "To new beginnings," my brother Thomas said softly, a genuine smile on his face. As we turned to face our loved ones, hand in hand, I felt a profound sense of rightness. This was where I belonged. This was who I was meant to be. Later that night, as Valerie and I lay tangled together, our costumes discarded on the floor, I marveled at the journey that had brought us here. From a chance meeting at a Halloween party to building a life and a legacy together, it was more than I'd ever dared to dream. "What are you thinking?" Valerie murmured, tracing lazy patterns on my skin. I smiled, pulling her closer. "I'm thinking that I can't wait to see what our next chapter holds." As we drifted off to sleep, the first light of dawn peeking through the curtains, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever twists and turns life had in store, we'd face them together. As partners, as lovers, as the team we were always meant to be. And really, what could be more super than that?